I took over as the dormitory supervisor of the boys' dormitory for a few days on behalf of my mother. In the middle of the night, someone knocked on the window. When I opened the window, there was lightning and thunder outside. A handsome guy soaked through climbed down from the window and pressed me to the ground. In my ear, his voice was restrained and hoarse. "Sister, why are you ignoring me?" On the first day as the dormitory supervisor, a group of male students knocked on the gate late at night. While knocking, they shouted for the dormitory supervisor, and to open the door. When I leaned over to take a look, the boy at the head shouted the sweetest. But when he saw me, he was like a cat with its fur standing on end. Even his voice changed. "Dormitory supervisor and sister? How did you become younger?" Suddenly, there was silence outside the door. A gust of wind blew. I clearly saw the horrified expressions of these boys outside the glass door. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes and shouted through the glass, "Your dormitory supervisor Aunt Yang is sick recently. I will take over her shift for a few days." The boy at the head was very good-looking, with clear eyes, slightly curly hair, and because of the hot weather, his porcelain white cheeks were faintly tinged with a layer of blush. Just now, he was also the one who shouted "Dormitory supervisor Aunt. Open the door, the sweetest." He realized and immediately changed his words. "Dormitory supervisor sister. Can you open the door?" The boys behind him immediately followed him and shouted, "Sister, open the door. Good sister, open the door." Although I am in the prime of my life, have been single since childhood, and in facing this group of boys who are extremely sweet-tongued alone, I still firmly abide by the post principle. No. The access control time has passed. Isn't the access control at 10:30? Now it's 10:50. I held up my phone. The screen lit up, showing the time. The boy at the head gritted his teeth. "Sister, can't you be more lenient? Before, Aunt Yang always." I righteously refused. "No. My surname is not Yang." There were 5 boys at the door. Obviously, they all knew each other. I heard another person call the boy at the head, "Justin. Forget it. Let's go and sleep on the playground. It's just hot anyway." Justin slightly raised his eyebrows, looked at me inside the glass door and then at the boy next to him. He decisively refused. "No. They're all bugs. If you want to go, go by yourself." That boy seemed to know his temper and sighed helplessly. The other boys next to him all agreed. The 4 of them went in the direction of the playground together. I poked the glass door. "Classmate Justin. Aren't you going with them?" Under the dim light, this classmate Justin smiled. His eyebrows and eyes were extremely vivid. It was midsummer, but it was like a spring flower blooming. But after all, it is night now. The air conditioner is on in the dormitory building. The outside temperature is not particularly high. Classmate Justin suddenly approached the glass door and exhaled on it. His fingers were very long. I looked at him. Classmate Justin wrote down his name stroke by stroke. Then he looked up. "Sister." My Justin is these 2 characters. The atmosphere was somewhat inexplicably ambiguous. I coughed softly and remained calm. "Okay. Classmate Justin." He put away his fingers and watched the 2 characters on the glass door start to become blurred. "Sister. You can just call me Justin." Since his surname and first name have the same pronunciation, it already has an affectionate feeling when read. At this moment, when it comes out of his own mouth, it adds even more lingering affection. "Okay. Classmate Justin. Go and rest," I said very ruthlessly. Justin looked at me. His eyes were very much like a Persian cat's eyes, looking lazy and clingy, but also extremely distant. "Sister. It's hot outside." As if he thought of something, he suddenly started to unbutton his clothes. Justin seemed to be wearing only a crow blue short-sleeved shirt. Just now it was just words. Now it's hands-on? This won't do. I shouted very righteously. "Classmate Justin. Don't be impulsive. As young people in the new era, when we encounter things, We must. Before I could finish saying the word rational, I saw Justin unbutton his crow blue shirt and reveal the white t-shirt inside. He held the shirt and looked at me. It's a bit hot. Sister. How am I impulsive? The collar of Justin's white t-shirt was a bit low, outlining a deep collarbone, like 2 more moons. And his tone was equally innocent. Only that thick smile almost leapt onto his beautiful eyebrows and eyes. We must learn to endure the heat. I didn't blush or have a racing heart. Justin's gaze lightly fell on me. Oh. Heat. He was smiling, but clearly had a hidden meaning. To how alluring is a teenager under the moonlight. I swallowed. Swallowed again. Finally swallowed the heat. Don't be lewd. Such a sentence rang in my heart. At the same time, I very timely remembered my identity, the glorious dormitory supervisor of male college students. Although it's only temporary. What is the relationship between a dormitory supervisor and a student? That is, of course, a relationship like relatives. So I have to regard these lively and youthful male students who exude the beauty of youth as my relatives and my sons. Thinking of this, I immediately calmed down. I said very coldly, "Classmate Justin. So remember to return to the dormitory on time next time. In such weather, be careful not to get heat stroke outside." The faint smile on Justin's face stiff and slightly. "Since you have decided to sleep outside the dormitory building, there is nothing I can do," I reminded. But boys must be careful when they are outside alone. Especially boys like Justin who look very delicious. Justin's smile seemed to become even shallower. After a long while, he gritted his teeth and said, "Thank you for your reminder. Sister, you're welcome. Just call me dormitory supervisor Aunt." I looked at the time. It's getting late. I'm going to sleep. Classmate Justin. As an adult, you must be careful. Justin. Even through the glass door, I could feel how fake the smile that Justin first out was. But I still turned around and entered the duty room without looking back. The duty room is not big. It is on the first floor of the dormitory building, right next to the gate. There is a bunk bed. Usually, the 2 dormitory supervisors of this building rest here. I consciously turned on the air conditioner. Just as I was about to lie down and sleep, I suddenly remembered that the window was not closed tightly. Just as I was closing the window, I saw a white figure slowly floating by outside the window. Take a closer look. It turned out to be that classmate Justin. He seemed to have already been completely disheartened. Sitting under a street lamp not far away, there happened to be a bench there. A rather decadent figure. A soft back of the head. And a slightly exposed side face. Such a beauty. Such a miserable state. It's really pitiful. I felt sad for him for a while. Then I closed the window and went to sleep. When I woke up, I was busy cleaning, almost forgetting about this incident. After all, there are so many boys in a dormitory building. I can't even look at them all. How could I remember such a small episode? Although Justin is indeed very good-looking, the dormitory supervisor, Aunt on my next shift came over with food and called my name. "Sit on G. Have you had a meal?" I stood up and said with a smile, "I bought bread when I had breakfast in the morning. Just heated up and eat it as lunch." "Okay. How is your mother's health recovering these 2 days?" "Very good. But it will take about a week before she can come back." Just as I was chatting with the aunt on the next shift, many boys passed by laughing and joking. "Hello. Dormitory supervisor Aunt." "Hello. Dormitory supervisor sister." Under the sun, these youthful skins almost made me a bit dazzled. "Sit on G. Go and rest. It's my turn to be on duty." The ants started to chase me away. I responded with a smile and planned to go to the duty room to take a nap. There was no light on in the duty room. The curtains were tightly drawn. The air conditioner was turned on at some point. As soon as I entered, it was much cooler instantly. I went to the bathroom to wash my face and changed into pajamas by the way. While looking at my phone, I groped and sat on the bed. But before I could touch the quilt, I first touched a soft feeling, soft and scalding. I quickly stood up and looked down at the bed. The quilt was tightly covered. In the dim room, there was a person lying on the lower bunk. He closed his eyes. Extremely curly eyelashes, blushing cheeks, red lips and white teeth. Just like Snow White. His hair, which was a bit messy when sleeping, was stuck to his cheek. But it added a kind of lazy beauty instead. Although it was very strange for him to appear here. Although his sleeping face was indeed very good-looking. I was stunned for almost a minute. Finally, I reacted. "Classmate Justin?" But that person seemed to wake up. Slightly opened his eyes and revealed clear eyes. Looked at me drowsily. He looked at me. Opened his mouth as if to say something. "Sister." The door of the duty room was suddenly opened. The relaxed and pleasant voice of the aunt on the next shift rang out. "Oh, right. Sit on G. There is one thing I forgot to tell you." Light entered the duty room. At the same time, I saw the smile in Justin's eyes getting deeper and deeper. He said lazily, "Sister, sit on G. You have to be responsible for me." 3 At the moment when the indoor light was turned on, I subconsciously pressed down the person who had just raised his head on the bed. Soft touch. It seemed to be Justin's hair. And scalding temperature. Unexpectedly. At the same time as I pressed down the teenager, he just slightly moved his head. Seemed a bit puzzled. But still obediently was pressed back under the quilt. Although his movement was very small. But he slightly turned his head. Under my fingers was no longer soft hair but warm skin. The icy fingertips suddenly touched the delicate and hot skin. At this time, not only I was stunned, but also the person who was pressed back under the covers. He seemed to move a little uncomfortably. "What's wrong, Aunt?" I quickly raised my head and looked at the aunt on the next shift who had suddenly opened the door. She glanced at me curiously. "Sit on G. What are you doing?" "Nothing." I coughed softly. I couldn't say that I was hiding a handsome male college student. The aunt on the next shift didn't suspect anything and said, "Oh, right. Sit on G. Just now a student was not feeling well. The air conditioner in the dormitory was broken again. So I let him rest here." Speaking of this, the aunt on the next shift looked around inside the room. "Where is that student?" I silently turned my head and was facing Justin, who had just poked his head out from under the quilt. He glanced at me. His already blushing cheeks became even redder. "Aunt, I'm here." The aunt on the next shift looked at where I was standing in confusion. "Then sit on G." "Oh, Aunt. I just added a quilt for him. The air conditioner is a bit cold. He still has a fever and can't be frozen," I said without blushing or having a racing heart. "Have a fever?" The aunt on the next shift was about to come over. At this time, Justin, who was lying on the bed, sat up. He slowly said, "Aunt, it's okay. My roommate will come back later and go to the infirmary with me." "Okay. Then sit on G. Take care of him for a while first." I nodded. After the aunt on the next shift went out, I let out a breath. "Sister, sit on G. Are you very nervous?" A voice suddenly sounded from behind. I turned my head. Justin, who was lying on the bed, was looking at me with a half smile. Perhaps because of the discomfort of having a fever. His eyelashes were slightly drooping and his cheeks were flushed. I looked at him steadily. Justin curved his lips at me. An extremely harmless look. He opened his mouth and was about to say something. But I had already suddenly approached the bed a few steps. When I reached out my hand, I clearly saw the smile on Justin's face stiffen. The palm directly touched his forehead. He seemed to be completely stiffened on the spot. Of course, I felt this change. I took back my hand. Looked at him. Couldn't help but smile. "Weren't you quite talkative just now?" Of course I didn't expect my sister to be so bold. "Indeed. You have a fever. When will your roommate come?" "In a while." "Are you very uncomfortable? Shall I accompany you to the infirmary now?" Justin's forehead is very hot. I don't have a thermometer with me and can't take his temperature. The teenager has already shrunk back under the quilt, breathing gently and speaking lazily. Sister Sid on G. Are you concerned about me? I can't really let you blackmail me. I poured a glass of water and heard the teenager's low laughter. As I said that, I handed the water to him. He didn't take it. He just lifted his eyes and spoke feebly. Sister, if you want to take care of someone, you should feed me the water. What's burned is your head, not your hand, I said very coldly. It has burned from head to toe. He didn't move. I had to take a spoon from the cabinet again and carefully scooped up a spoonful and held it to his lips. I don't know what Justin was thinking. At first, he was quite cooperative in drinking water. Suddenly, he bit the spoon. I gently pulled the spoon, it didn't move. He bit the spoon. His cheeks were bright red, but his eyelashes were fluttering up and down. It was obvious that he was suppressing a smile. Classmate Justin, I advise you not to do this. He raised his eyebrows. In the next second, I pushed the spoon in. Justin almost immediately let go of the spoon. He covered his mouth and looked at me in disbelief. I slowly took back the spoon, looked into Justin's eyes, and smiled slightly. My cat is quite like you. Only sometimes it bites people's hands. Justin opened his eyes wide. His Persian cat-like eyes were beautiful and clear. For Justin's roommate did come very quickly. I don't know if he was shy or something. When Justin got up from the bed, he followed without saying a word. Before leaving, his roommate seemed to remember something and looked at me with a surprised look. I carefully observed the back of this roommate. It seemed that he was also one of the classmates who was locked outside by me last night. In the afternoon, it is usually the time for students to have classes. There are not many people entering and leaving the dormitory. So I took out my computer to deal with the assignments assigned by my tutor. Yes. Although I have become a dormitory supervisor, I am actually still a graduate student at another university. But this school is actually also my undergraduate school. While processing the documents, Senior Leo sent me a text message saying that he is now in Jichuan and we can meet. As my senior in the same department, during my undergraduate years, Senior Leo helped me a lot. Later, he chose to be recommended for postgraduate study at our school. He should be graduating soon. After all, we are acquaintances. We should indeed meet. Senior. Then I'll treat you to a meal today? The reply came quickly from there. You already called me senior. How can I let you treat me? I'll wait for you at the North Cafeteria. Can you come out for dinner at night? Yes. Our dormitory supervisors also have a shift change system. In the computer major at that time, Senior Leo was also a remarkable figure, entering Jichuan with a top ranking in the province and winning scholarships for several consecutive years. I heard that his family background is also good. During my undergraduate years, I was fortunate to be on a team with Senior Leo. There were so many girls asking me to deliver love letters and gifts. Now, 2 years have passed. Senior Leo is really unchanged. He was wearing a white shirt with one button and done. His straight back and somewhat cold eyebrows and eyes. Even standing in the crowd, he is still so conspicuous. I sighed and then greeted, Senior. Leo was looking up at the Stignabird not far away. Hearing the sound, he slightly turned his head. Junior. He smiled. You haven't changed much in these 2 years. I shook my fingers. No. Girls change 18 times. Okay. There are many people here. Let's go upstairs. I remember there weren't so many people before. Sure enough. It's newly renovated in these 2 years, and the food has also improved. How are you doing at G University? Leo tilted his head and looked at me. I didn't expect you to decide to take the exam for G University at that time. You clearly had the qualification for being recommended for postgraduate study, right? I smiled slightly. It's very good. Didn't I just go for the chip major of G University? But Senior, how are you and your girlfriend? There is an elevator leading to the 2nd floor. Leo and I chatted while getting on the elevator. He walked 1 step faster than me, Hearing this sentence, Leo's footsteps paused slightly. But soon, he said inferently, I have been broken up for more than a year. Hearing this, I awkwardly patted his shoulder and comforted him. It's okay, senior. It's just being single. It's nothing. So, are you also single? Please add to more words. He was stunned. What? Noble. I am a single noble. I looked at him righteously. Leo laughed. Just as we were talking, on the elevator coming down from upstairs, a familiar figure appeared head-on. In summer, the days are long, and the nights are short. In the evening, the sun is still bright. And that glaring white clothing is even more conspicuous. White coat, white mask. The person coming down on the elevator next door was lowering his head to unbutton his clothes. He seemed to sense something and slightly raised his eyes. His eyes with an almond-shaped outline, when wide and slightly, are like jewels, although wearing a mask. I recognized at a glance this is Justin. I casually withdrew my gaze. But his gaze remained fixed on me. He slowly went down. I slowly went up. The senior beside me seemed to remember something and said, Do you still like eating iced powder? Shall we buy one later? I opened my mouth and was about to answer. But someone on the elevator next door who was about to pass by suddenly spoke. Sister, it's a bit cold in the room. Don't turn the air conditioner to low. I quickly turned my head to look at him along the sound. At this moment, it was not because of what he said, but because, just when Justin had just passed by me, on the hand I placed on the handrail, suddenly there was the warm and slightly cool touch of skin. That was definitely Justin's hand. Good grief. Just as I was in a daze, Senior Leo beside me seemed to notice something. He looked at me and asked, Do you know that person just now? He stayed in the dormitory supervisor's lounge when he was sick. Leo slowly withdrew his gaze. He looks a bit familiar. Saying that, he added, Why? Are you familiar with him? Why does he call you sister? Sure enough. He heard it. I shrugged. I just came to be the dormitory supervisor yesterday. Looking at Leo's thoughtful look and thinking of what he just said, I was curious. Senior, do you know him? I seem to have seen him at the science building. Science building? When the elevator was about to reach the second floor, the senior said, I remembered, but before he could finish speaking, a girl in a short skirt quickly rushed out of the cafeteria on the second floor. She had a beautiful face. Her cheeks were flushed with anger. She shouted while running down the stairs. Her voice was not very low. I could hear it clearly. Justin? Justin? I subconsciously turned my head and only saw a figure in white among the crowd. I don't know if he didn't hear this shout. He didn't look back. Is it for him? Junior, be careful. The familiar voice rang in my ear. A hand suddenly pulled my arm. I took a step forward and apologized embarrassedly. I was distracted. I'm sorry. Senior. Fortunately, there are not many people. Leo withdrew his hand. He shook his head helplessly and then raised his eyes to look at the girl who had just run downstairs. My gaze also turned downstairs. The person the girl shouted for was indeed Justin. Among the crowd, the lively and beautiful girl suddenly held the arm of the young man in white. She seemed to be angry, but more likely she was being coquettish. The side of her face that was slightly exposed was flushed. I couldn't help but sigh. So youthful. That boy is called Justin. He is majoring in biochemistry. Leo remembered. Biochemistry? This is the ace major of Jichuan. When I was leading a project before, I have seen him. His brain is indeed very good. Leo added inferently. He is also quite popular with girls. Many girls like him? Leo looked at me and nodded. I couldn't help but laugh. More than senior? You. He shook his head helplessly. The chat with the senior was quite pleasant. He said that he would stay in the office for several months. When there is time, we can go and see the tutor together. Although today is only the second day as a dormitory supervisor, I am still getting used to it. according to the schedule. I still have to sleep in the duty room today, nearly 10 o'clock. Because I was a bit hungry, I went back to the duty room to eat something. But just when I was seriously eating cookies with my head down, there was suddenly a knocking sound on the window behind the curtain. The finger holding the cookie paused. I pretended not to hear the sound and continued to eat with my head down. After a few seconds, the knocking sound rang again. At the same time, there was also the deliberately lowered voice of the teenager. Sister. It's me. I looked at the time. It wasn't 10:30 yet. I got up and pulled the curtain. Sure enough, Justin's face was revealed. He swayed behind the glass window and smiled slightly. I looked him over. He was still wearing the same white coat as in the afternoon. His soft hair was sticking to his ear. Because of the hot weather, it seemed to be a little wet. Did he just come out of the laboratory? I didn't open the window. I pointed to the direction of the gate with my hand, indicating for him to go back to the dormitory building. Justin touched his chin and didn't move. He stretched out his finger and started writing on the window. I watched him slowly write two words, sit on G. The two words quickly disappeared. I sighed helplessly and opened the window. The cold air in the room instantly rushed out. Justin was looking at me with a slight smile. At this moment, he couldn't help but cover his mouth and cough. I remembered the scene in the evening and couldn't help frowning. He clearly has a girlfriend. This is what I thought. And of course I asked directly. Classmate Justin. You should have a girlfriend. Right? Justin was stunned for a moment. And then couldn't help laughing. Girlfriend? I saw that girl today. I added. At the cafeteria. Justin's expression remained unchanged. He still had a faint smile. You mean her? I looked at him. Do I seem like a fickle person in your eyes? He sighed helplessly. But it turns out that sister cares so much about whether I have a girlfriend. I reached out to close the window. Justin reacted quickly. He put one hand against the window. Dormitory, supervisor sister. Don't close the window. If the dormitory building closes later, you can only sleep outside again. My roommates are not at school. I forgot to bring my key, and can't get in. Justin frowned slightly. Sister. You have to find a place for me to sleep. He smiled slightly and glanced into the room. None of your 3 roommates are at school? Justin nodded affirmatively. Are you sure? He nodded very seriously again. There is a spare key here with the dormitory supervisor. Wait for me. I was only halfway through speaking when I suddenly remembered that the spare key was with another dormitory supervisor aunt in the building. She had something to do today, and went home early. The key was also locked up. Justin looked at me and called me, Sister, sit on G. What's wrong? His voice was full of smiles. Is there no spare key? I rubbed my temples. Then I'll go up with you to take a look. Justin answered calmly, okay. Justin has a smell of peach. When he walked through the door and came to me, I subconsciously remembered the taste of peach candy. How could a person who just came out of the laboratory smell like peach? Sister, sit on G. Are you staring at me in a daze? Justin put his hands in the pockets of his white coat and looked at me with raised eyebrows. I ignored him and turned to walk in the direction of the elevator. Justin just said that his dormitory is on the 5th floor. Wait for me. Justin behind me caught up with me while smiling. He was tall and walked fast. Soon he stood beside me. That faint peach smell wafted over again. It smells quite good. I thought casually. I pressed the elevator button. The elevator in the school is very slow. When it reached the 2nd floor, the elevator slowly stopped. Justin was originally standing beside me. But at the moment the elevator door opened, accompanied by the voices of 2 boys. He almost instantly stood in front of me. I looked up at him in confusion. But he was facing away from me. He even stepped back a little. Although Justin looked thin, he still completely blocked me. I slightly poked my head out. Just as I was about to speak, I saw the 2 boys who had just entered in the elevator door. Actually, It's nothing for boys. Wearing less is also nothing. After all, I am the dormitory's supervisor. Naturally, I have restraint in the face of youthful male charm. It's just, they didn't wear anything on their upper bodies. They only wore colorful boxer shorts. At this time, they were happily discussing mobile games with their backs to me and Justin. Maybe it's too hot. There is some restlessness in the hearts of the students. I quickly withdrew my gaze and quietly shrank behind Justin. Although as a dormitory supervisor I am more calm. But for the sake of the students with thin skins, I'd better pretend not to see. Fortunately, these two rather restless male students were very engaged in discussing the game, and went out on the fourth floor. Only then did I slowly move out from behind Justin. Justin didn't look back, but I saw his relaxed eyebrows and eyes on the elevator door. At the same time, he said in surprise, "Sister, sit on G. Why are your ears red?" I gritted my teeth. What a mean little brother. 7. But just as Justin said, there was indeed no one in their dormitory. I withdrew my hand, knocking on the door. Justin was leaning against the door and looking at messages on his phone. At this time, he raised his head and slightly raised his eyebrows. "Sister, now you should believe me, right?" I looked at him. "You have nowhere to go?" Justin nodded with a smile. "Sister, do you want to take me in?" I looked around. There should be your classmates in these dormitories, right? If I say there aren't any? Justin thought for a while and said. I very restrainedly didn't roll my eyes at him. Justin suddenly handed me his phone. The screen was the interface for searching contacts. I looked up at him. "Is it not okay?" Justin sighed. "You add the contact information of the dormitory supervisor and?" Justin nodded affirmatively. "Add it." Just as I was about to speak, the door of the neighboring dormitory suddenly opened. The boy was stepping out while chatting and laughing about something. Who knew that as soon as the door opened, he made eye contact with me and Justin. He stared at me in astonishment, and then at Justin. "Justin, what are you and the dormitory supervisor aunt?" "Oh no. Dormitory supervisor sister. Doing here?" Before he finished speaking, he wanted to dart behind the door again. He was wearing short sleeves and long pants. Much more conservative than the two male students in the elevator. What was he so afraid of? "Classmate. Don't hide." I grabbed this boy who kept trying to dart behind the door. Justin gave the boy a cold look. "Dormitory supervisor sister. Is there anything wrong?" The boy shivered. "Is it cold?" I withdrew my hand and slightly turned my head, just in time to see Justin's expressionless face. As expected of a good-looking person, even with a straight face, it is still pleasing to the eye. I thought so. "You and Justin are classmates, right?" "There is no one in their dormitory today. He forgot to bring his key." "Can he stay in your dormitory?" The boy subconsciously agreed. "Sure." After saying that, he looked at Justin. Before Justin could speak, at this time, he helplessly half-drooped his eyes and reached out to rub his temples. The boy. I nodded in satisfaction. "That's fine. Classmate Justin. You have a place to stay." Then the dormitory supervisor aunt. "We'll go downstairs first." "Wait." A hand suddenly grabbed my wrist. The palm was a bit hot. I was a bit surprised and immediately turned my head. Justin pursed his lips and his gaze stopped on the hand holding my wrist. He seemed to tighten his fingers. "Classmate Justin." I blinked slowly and looked at him. The boy standing beside him, not knowing whether to leave or turn around, stared blankly at Justin and me. Justin opened his mouth as if to say something. I watched his eyelashes flutter and then lower. Nothing. He slowly loosened his fingers. I looked at him thoughtfully and then turned around to go downstairs. But halfway there, I suddenly turned around again. The boy next door had already returned to the dormitory. But Justin was still standing there. He was looking in my direction. I couldn't help being stunned, noticing that I had stopped. Justin didn't have time to withdraw his gaze. In the light, Justin's white clothes were tinged with the hues of dusk. His originally lazy and indifferent eyebrows and eyes were now much softer. Just like a cat showing its claws suddenly retracted its claws and looked at its owner lazily. Owner. What was I thinking? I sighed helplessly in my heart. Justin. Rest early. You still had a fever this afternoon. Before the words finished. Whether it was my illusion or not, the teenager's eyes were almost instantly lit up. On that originally silent face, a smile suddenly appeared. Okay. 8 in the end. I still added Justin's contact information. Justin's face is indeed very pleasing. And his mouth is also very sweet. But what I didn't expect was that he actually added my mother's contact information, and made my mother almost full of praise for him. Even before taking medicine and going to sleep, she sent me a text message. Mrs. Chu, sit on G. Why didn't you agree to Xiao Jiang's friend request? I pushed you to him. You should agree quickly. I typed with difficulty. Mom. Isn't this not so good? The person on the other side quickly typed. What's not good about this? How many years older are you than him? As a senior, you have to help your junior more. I looked at the message she sent helplessly and thought, does this junior look like he wants to treat me as a senior? Which junior would call sister one after another and flirt with the senior so charmingly? Of course. Except for those who are not serious. It is impossible to communicate with Mrs. Chu, who is sick. So I reluctantly agreed to Justin's friend request. Early the next morning, I found a bottle of soy milk in front of the window. There was also a sticky note on the soy milk. Sister, your profile picture is very cute. Next to the words was a simple sketch of a little dog. My WeChat profile picture is a white little dog. The handwriting was very beautiful, and the little dog was very cute. I helplessly tore off the sticky note and didn't know if I should drink this bottle of soy milk. On the third day, another new bottle of soy milk was quietly placed on the windowsill. The words on the sticky note were very familiar. Sister, will you go and watch the school celebration on Friday night? The simple sketch next to it was not a little dog anymore. It became a little cat with closed eyes. This guy. It seems that he changed his profile picture after adding me. His WeChat profile picture seems to be a little black cat. It's quite cute. I was a bit distracted. But the school celebration of Jichuan should start on Saturday. On Friday, there should only be an evening party for the school celebration. Party. I remember being the host of the New Year's Carnival twice when I was a freshman and sophomore in undergraduate. Later, I came to my senses and tore off the sticky note. Just when I was about to put the sticky note aside, I noticed that there was a small line of words written on the back of the sticky note. It was still Justin's handwriting. Stella, you must come and watch. I haven't seen Justin for several days. But without exception, whenever it's my shift in the morning, there will always be a cup of soy milk or porridge on the window of the duty room. Warm, sweet and refreshing. The night before Friday, Senior suddenly sent me a message saying that there was no class on Friday. He asked if I wanted to go and see the teacher with him. I replied with a yes in the chat interface. Then I went back. But I saw the note named Justin lying quietly under several messages. For some reason, Justin never contacted me on WeChat. I opened the chat page with him. I was stunned for a while, and then turned off the screen. On Friday morning, I didn't see the sticky note in front of the window. When I walked out of the duty room, I found that Senior was already waiting at the door. Tall and slender, with a cold expression, a strict white shirt. Senior. Hearing the sound, Leo turned his head. Junior. It's not your shift today, right? No. It's not. I smiled. Leo nodded and then handed me a cup of coffee, iced Americano. The packaging of the coffee was very familiar. In my 4 years at Jichuan, for 3 years, almost every few days, I would drink a cup of coffee of the same style in the morning. It seemed that when he saw me staring at the coffee in a daze, Leo said, I saw that you liked to drink it very much before. Indeed. It's just that it was never me who liked to drink iced Americano in the morning before. I smiled, took the coffee, didn't say much, just said faintly, "It's okay now." After all, no matter how much you like something, if you drink too much, you will get tired of it. "Thank you, Senior." Leo was stunned for a moment. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he just changed the topic. "There seems to be a party tonight," he said slowly, in a tone of reminiscing about the past, but I had never heard before. "I remember that in your freshman and sophomore years, you and I co-hosted the carnival parties." I smiled and nodded, "Yes. Leo and I are both from the computer department. He is one grade above me. As an outstanding freshman entering Jichuan, I co-hosted the New Year's carnival with Leo." The senior in white clothes really touched my heart once. Mature, stable, and polite. When I stood beside the senior in an evening dress, it was like a dream. After all, it was once the ignorance of a girl. Whether it was doing projects together or hosting large and small parties, I thought that I would finally stand beside Leo openly and justifiably. But when he introduced his girlfriend to the team members, I finally knew that this was just an illusion. So I escaped from Jichuan and went to Ji University. 2 years have passed, and I have slowly let it go. Appreciation, like, and love. Everyone needs to experience them. The bitter iced Americano in the morning for those 3 years, and the self who could be moved by a text message from Leo at night for those 3 years have gradually gone away. So in my junior and senior years, I refused the opportunity to continue being the host of the party. The senior standing beside me seemed to be saying something. Suddenly, a little cat jumped out of the grass and then slowly stopped at the corner of the building to bask in the sun. I finally came back to my senses from these thoughts. "Junior?" Perhaps my distraction was too obvious. Leo paused and called me. "Sorry, Senior. I was just thinking about something." He looked at me. His eyes were deep. I didn't know what he was thinking. After a while, he seemed to smile helplessly. "It's okay." This kind of smile, helpless and gentle, it made me waver countless times in my 3 years of undergraduate. But now, I won't anymore. My beloved teacher during my undergraduate years, who was also my project tutor and graduation guidance teacher, seemed to have never changed into years. When he saw me and Leo standing together, he was slightly stunned and quickly reacted. "It's been a long time since I saw you two at the same time," the tutor reminisced. "In the past, when you had something you didn't understand, you would go and ask Xiaolu. Xiaolu would bring you to me. Sometimes, the two of you would even argue because of some ideas." I said with a smile, "Teacher Zhang. So you actually wanted to see me and Senior arguing? You child." He looked at me and then at Leo standing beside. His eyes were gentle. "You and Leo are both promising students that I am optimistic about. Tell me, why did you go to Ji University?" "Teacher Zhang. There are always talented people emerging in each generation. Are you still afraid that there will be no successors?" I took the tutor's hand and smiled. "There really aren't any students with as many questions as the junior back then." Leo standing beside added with a smile. The tutor stroked his non-existent beard and nodded with a slight smile. "Xiaolu. Don't say that." Siding asked so many questions. "Isn't it because you spoiled her?" Impulsive all the time, Teacher Zhang suddenly. A familiar voice rang out, interrupting the laughter in the room. Following the sound, I subconsciously looked up. The teenager was standing at the door, wearing goggles for experiments. Under the glasses, his eyes were looking over here coldly at this moment. His gaze fell on me. He was looking at me. He slowly entered the office, wearing a white coat, goggles, and a mask. But strangely, I recognized him at a glance. It was Justin. Justin's voice seemed to have a smile, but in his eyes, I couldn't see any smile. "Teacher Zhang, I have finished the data from last time. Thinking that you need it urgently, I quickly brought it over." His gaze remained motionless and still stayed on me. I won't disturb your chat with seniors and juniors. Will I? 10. He is definitely doing it on purpose. I looked at Justin and thought so. But after all, the tutor wouldn't think so much. When he saw Justin, he said happily, "Zhao Zhang, you guys finished the data so quickly?" Thinking that teacher Zhang needs it urgently. Of course we have to finish it quickly. Justin put the materials on the table. Some experimental data haven't been printed out yet. I'll send it to your email. The tutor nodded in satisfaction, turned around and pointed at Justin and said to me, citing, "This is Justin from the biochemistry department next door. He is very smart. Since we are all from the same school, he can be considered your junior." Before I could speak, Justin had already said, "Teacher Zhang, I and senior sister Sidonji have known each other for a long time." What he said was obviously very normal. But when he mentioned my name, I always felt it was very subtle and even ambiguous. So much so that my face suddenly turned red. Although I hoped that the tutor didn't notice it. But looking at the tutor's obviously stunned eyes, he looked at Justin meaningfully. "So it's like this." Then my introduction was late. Justin left after putting down the data. Leo and I chatted with the tutor for a while before leaving. As soon as we went out, we saw Justin standing by the wall and looking down at the materials in his hand. Hearing footsteps, Justin raised his head. "Junior brother Zhang, do you have something to do?" It was Leo beside me who spoke first. Justin had already taken off his goggles and was now holding them in his hand. He smiled lazily. Just when he was about to speak, a girl's voice rang out not far away. "Justin." To be honest, the voice wasn't loud, but it was very penetrating in the quiet corridor. Justin frowned. My gaze fell on the girl walking over. It was the girl I had seen in the cafeteria last time. She was also wearing a white coat. Presumably, she was in the same major as Justin. "Justin, why did you come here alone?" "I just heard the teacher say that you don't want to be recommended for a postgraduate study at Jichuan. You actually want to go to G University. Your home is so far away from G University." Before she could finish speaking, the girl had already noticed me and Leo standing in front of Justin. "Junior brother Zhang, it seems that someone is looking for you." Leo turned his head and said to me, "Let's go. Sit on G." Hearing this address from the senior, I was a bit surprised but still nodded. Justin didn't even look at the girl. He straightened up and walked to my side. "You will go to the party, right, sister?" He called sister very softly. I looked up at him. Justin stared at me without blinking. Although he seemed very calm on the surface, he was actually very nervous. Really? Like a little cat. I couldn't help but smile. "I will go. There should be quite a lot of programs." In Justin's eyes, a smile suddenly filled them. "Yes. Junior, are you very familiar with him?" While waiting for the elevator, the person beside me suddenly asked. I thought for a while and said slowly, "It's not very familiar if you say it's familiar. It's not familiar if you say it's not familiar." "Junior," Leo called me. I looked at him in confusion. His face was a bit solemn. I didn't know what he was thinking. "Do you still remember what I told you before?" "What?" "That there are many girls around him." "Junior, don't be deceived by him." I was stunned for a moment and then smiled slightly. "I know. Senior. Don't worry. I'm not so stupid." Leo pressed the elevator button. "This kind of person is not suitable for you." "Not suitable for me?" The elevator door slowly closed. "Senior, what kind of person do you think is suitable for me?" I didn't look at him. Leo didn't speak. The elevator was incredibly quiet. When the number dropped to 1, the elevator door creaked and was about to open. Leo suddenly said, "Junior, if you think Senior, you don't need to see me off. I can go back to the dormitory by myself. There should still be work in your laboratory, right?" I interrupted him all of a sudden. "You don't need to see me off. I can go back to the dormitory by myself." There should still be work in your laboratory. Right? Leo looked at me. He understood what I wanted to say. He gave a wry smile and finally said slowly, "Okay. What has been missed is already in the past." Leo is still a respected senior of mine. But he can no longer be the senior whose every move makes my heart flutter when I understand that everything in the past was really just ambiguity, and only stops at ambiguity. 11. There are a lot of people at the school celebration party. Not only are there students from Jichuan itself. The party was newly set up by Jichuan. There were a circle of club booths surrounding the stage. At night, the lights of the booths and the stage lit up together. Several drones flew in the air to record. As a top-notch old and famous school. Not only tourists who come here admiringly, but also former alumni and well-known people from all walks of life visit the school celebration. I strolled around the booths and looked at my phone. There was no message from Justin either. Although I originally planned to just stroll around the school celebration party. But why did Justin insist that I come? Where is Justin now? And just at the beginning of the party, I finally understood where Justin was. The teenager was wearing a bright red suit, and was shining brightly in the center of the stage at this moment. Accompanied by the screams around. My expression now could be described as dumbfounded. It's not that it's not good looking. On the contrary. This bright red is unexpectedly harmonious with the teenager's lazy temperament. It doesn't seem frivolous nor old-fashioned. Under the colorful background, Justin is really like the brightest red light bulb. Thinking of seeing Justin before. He was only wearing black, white, crow blue and other colors. For such an extremely high-profile color. I remember that in Jichuan. Although the clothes of the hosts of such important parties can be chosen by themselves. I rarely see boys choose bright red suits. So dazzling. As a result, the one boy and two girls around Justin completely blend in with the background. Oh no. This is not right. How can we judge people by their beauty? I rubbed my temples and watched Justin on stage finish his opening remarks calmly. This suit is really so red. And looking at this suit, I suddenly felt inexplicably familiar. Thunderous applause rang out. Justin and the girl beside him left the stage. Before they left, I finally gave half of my attention to that girl. Only then did I realize that she was still the girl who especially liked to call Justin's name. When the opening just now, the name was mentioned and it was also shown on the big screen. It seems to be called Melody. Just when I remembered this name, the screen of my phone suddenly lit up. The little black cat's profile picture was flashing on the screen. "Sister, come to the backstage. I have something to show you." Backstage? I typed seriously. "How do you know I'm here?" The reply came instantly. "I saw you. With so many people. How could Justin see me?" Seeing that I didn't speak, Justin made a voice call, which startled me so much that I almost dropped my phone. "Hello, sister?" His voice was a bit panting. For some reason, my ears were a bit hot. I coughed softly. "What's wrong?" "I really saw you." On the other end of the phone, Justin's voice was obviously lowered. He chuckled a few times. "Sister, your dumbfounded look is so cute." Before I could speak, Justin added another sentence. "Like a silly dog. Are you polite? Then can you come over?" He softened his voice. "I have something I want to show you." I had no choice but to say yes. There were quite a lot of people backstage. I looked around but didn't see Justin. But behind the large curtain, I saw that red figure. It was quite conspicuous. But there were all staff members there. I didn't feel good about going over. Just as I was about to take out my phone to send a message to Justin, footsteps had slowly approached me. I looked up and was almost dazzled by the beauty in front of me. Looking at Justin up close was really like the sun approaching in front of me. Because he was the host today. He seemed to have put on light makeup today. It made his eyes even brighter and shining. Perhaps I observed him a bit carefully. Justin's face suddenly turned red. I couldn't help laughing. "Classmate Justin. What do you want to show me?" People were coming and going around. There were many staff members. Justin put a finger in front of his lips. motioning for me to follow him. Although I didn't know what Justin wanted to do, I still followed him to another direction of the backstage. He stopped behind the large curtain at the other end. The hosts were all waiting at the other end. Only Justin pulled me over alone. Do you see it? He seemed a bit embarrassed. He pursed his lips slightly and stared at me intently. But I really didn't know what to see. I had to look him up and down carefully. Then I asked slowly, "See what?" Justin stared at me without blinking. His earlobes were almost completely red. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out two words, "Clothes." I pretended to suddenly understand. "Ah, you mean this red suit? Well, it's not bad. It's very nice and suits you well." Justin was silent for a moment. On the stage very close to us, there was the sound of the ongoing program. Applause and laughter came through a screen. Amid this laughter, Justin finally said slowly, "You don't remember." "What?" His eyes seemed to shine like stars in the sky. "Stella, can you let me try to be your boyfriend?" The applause under the stage gradually rose. This meant the end of the program. At the same time, it also meant that the hosts needed to appear on stage. The heartbeat that was as thunderous as the applause was surprisingly rapid for some reason, and I slowly curved into a smile. "Okay, just give it a try. Anyway, I won't lose anything."